Hello students, today we're going to do topic 8, block 8 notes. And there's a few things you need to remember from your original topic 8 notes that we did at the beginning of the topic that you need to make sure you remember or add to today's notes. So on today's blank sheet of paper, I would like you to write down this symbol, which means this represents less than and or equal to. I guess I should separate that there a little. And remember, this symbol just means less than. And so we're going to use the other way. What if the symbol was facing this way? That means greater than. Oops, I could spell greater than correctly today. Or equal to. And if I had this symbol, that means greater than. Now, what type of a dot do we use when we have the greater than or equal to or less than or equal to symbols? It's going to be a closed dot. So I'm already going to put those here so that I have them in my notes when I need to do more problems on this paper. And then if it's less than or greater than, there's not a line under it, it's an open dot. So I just want you to make sure you take a moment, pause this video, add these to your notes so you don't have to be going all the way to the beginning of your notes. All right, now we're going to start working on this problem. And remember, the most important thing here is on our piece of paper, we're going to write down what I'm writing down. So the cost of renting a car is $29.95 plus 16 cents per mile. What is the relationship between the cost of the car rental, R, and the number of miles driven, M? It wants us to write a rule to describe the relationship. Oh, thank goodness. We don't have to solve it. It just says write a rule. No solving here. Okay, so we're going to pull out any important information. And we have the cost of renting a car is $29.95. So just to rent a car, it's $29.95. Just to sit in it, not drive anywhere. So we're going to call this the initial cost. And then if I want to drive to the store, which is a mile away, it's going to cost me 16 cents per mile. Okay, so I need to write down that. 0.16 cents per mile. What is the relationship between the cost of the rental car, R? So R is going to represent cost of rental car, cost of the rental, and the number of miles driven is M. So M equals miles driven. So I need to put this in an equation. So R is the cost of the rental, so that's the total right there. So this is the total. And then we're going to start putting this equation together. So R equals, let's see, got to do the $29.95 plus the 16 cents. And then the 16 cents, here's miles, and here's miles. So those are going to go together. So I'm going to do it like that. And that's it. Because if I drove 20 miles, that'd be 20 times 16 cents. Plus the $29.95 would tell me how much I have to pay the rental car company. Okay, so we're going to move on. The business owner does not want to spend more. Oh, so now I'm the business owner. So I guess up here, person who owns this business who's renting this car doesn't want to spend more than $75 a day to run a car. And that's true because when you grow up and you end up working for companies, or maybe you're the boss of a company. You don't want your employees to just like drive all over the place. That's losing money. So you're going to tell them, I'm only going to give you this much money to do this, and they got to stay under that amount. Or your boss might tell you, you only get this much money. So like you don't want to spend more than their boss is giving you because you don't want to put your own money in there. So this boss says, no more, don't spend more than $75 a day. So I'm going to write that down. Don't spend, and you should write this down too, don't spend more than $75 a day. So don't spend more than $75. So I need to use the rule that I wrote up above to write a mathematical statement representing this equation. So I could spend $75, but I just can't spend any more. I can spend less than 75. So going back up here, less than or equal to, that's the symbol we're going to use. So I'm going to write that down here, less than or equal to 75. So now I can write this equation that I wrote here. And I'm going to say here's the $75. I can't spend more than that on the car rental. So this has to be less than or equal to, whoops, that's greater than. What am I doing there? Let me write the equation first. 2995 plus 0.16 m has to be less than or equal to $75. Okay, make sure you're adding these to your notes because this equation I think is going to come back later. Oh, this wants us to figure out how to do this. So I just want you to pay attention to this part. You don't have to write this down in your notes. Just want you to visually see. So this is a symbol that is no line under it, so it's going to be an open dot. This is going to be a closed dot. This, remember, that means not equal to. So we leave that alone. And this right here is no line under it, so it's an open dot. This is equal to. We leave that alone. And this is less than or equal to, so that's going to be a closed dot. So if you were to graph these, it would look like this. I'd find -4, open dot. And since it's facing to the left, this is facing to the left, that's the way I'm going to graph it. Here it's x is first, which is correct. Got to find 0. It's going to be a closed dot. And since the arrow is facing that way, I'm going to face that way. And then here, when you have that, I'm going to find 5. And where is it at? Here it is. Basically, I can go like this because it's just anything that is not equal to 5. Okay, open dot on -7. And then since x is first, great, I don't have to do any flipping. So then I can go this way. Yay! This is equal to -2.25. So I'm going to find here, I think it's about right there. And I just put a dot. I don't put any lines because remember, it's right exactly equal to that. And then this one, 4 2/5. So it's going to be a closed dot. I got to find 4 2/5 is probably about right there. Since it's facing that way, because the x is first, which is fine, then I go that way. So this is just for you to visually see. Okay, so when you solve the inequality, ooh, look, we did it correct because right here it shows us, and we did it correct up above. So when you solve the inequality, what question will you have answered about the car rental scenario? Well, I don't know. Let's write the inequality down. 29.95 plus 0.16 m less than or equal to 75. And I like to put the 0 zeros because we're using money and pennies matter. So we're going to do our balance line. through the inequality, and I'm just going to do the math. So make sure that you pause the video, do the math, and then come back to make sure that we have the same answer. Okay, so welcome back. And now I'm going to show you, you can follow this with the same steps to see if we got the same thing. So I'm going to subtract 29.95. See, it had some change there. And these cancel out. I'm left with this. So I need to bring that down, 0.16m. I bring down the inequality. And when I subtract this, I get $45.05. See, that's why it's good that you put those 0 zeros there. Now I need to divide by 0.16. I think I said 0.6. I meant 0.16. And then this cancels out, and I'm left with Mr. M by himself. M is less than or equal to. Okay, how many miles can we drive here? 281.5. Oh, not there. 281.5 miles per day. Oops, sorry. Writing cursive, not supposed to. Per day. Okay, I want you to write this in your notes. It is very important because now we're going to start solving equations that have inequalities. And oh my gosh, whenever you're dealing with inequalities, you have to, at the final spot when you're solving, you need to flip the inequality. So pause this video and make sure you write this down in your notes and highlight it. I don't know, whatever you do to make sure that you know that you need to do this every time you multiply or divide by a negative number. Okay, now I'll take a moment to write down this equation on your paper. Whoops. Okay, so we're always going to draw our balance line. We already know that we always draw the balance line. And now we perform the math. This is going to be -8 from both sides. This crosses off. We're left with this, so I need to be 2x. And I keep the inequality the same because I haven't divided by a negative. Oh, I can't forget to bring this down too. -2x. And so then this should be 6 on this side. And now I'm going to have to divide by a -2 on both sides. So remember this rule up here? Whenever this is divide or multiply. So this is dividing. We're dividing here by a negative. So we're going to have to flip this inequality. Flip the inequality. So I'm going to do that first so I don't forget to do it. I know I'm dividing by a negative, so I'm going to flip this bad boy around. And so these cancel out. I'm left with x. And 6 minus divided by 2 is going to be a -3. So that is going to be our final answer. Now we are going to write down this inequality equation, and we're going to solve. We always draw our balance line. And we're going to -8 again. And, oh, it says here it wants us to add 2 first. Okay, well, let's see what that difference is. Plus 2x, plus 2x. So now we have, it's kind of not, I think this is just going to confuse people. So we're not going to worry about that one. Okay, we're going to now write this one down. 3x minus 6 is greater than 8. So we're going to draw our balance line through the inequality. We're going to do plus 6 on both sides. And this cancels out. I'm left with this. So I need to bring that down. And then 8 plus 6 is 14. And now I'm going to divide by 3. But I'm not dividing by a negative. Remember, you only flip the inequality when you're dividing by a negative number. We're not dividing by a negative number, so we leave it alone. The inequality does not change. It stays the same. So this cancels out. I'm left with x. And 14 divided by 3, well, we're just going to leave that alone. 14 divided by 3. It's quite okay. We don't need to make it a mixed number. Okay, let's see here. Negative 3x plus 6 is greater than 30. I'm going to draw my line. I'm going to minus 6 from both sides. That cancels out. 30 minus 6 is, what is that, 24. Bring down my inequality. And then this is left here, so I need to do that, 3x. And now I'm dividing by a negative 3. And since I'm dividing by a negative, this inequality will then flip. I'm left with x there. And 24 divided by a negative 3 is going to leave me with a negative 8. So all here I want you to do is write down the inequality expression, equation, excuse me. So that's negative 2x plus 6.5 equals 1.5. They're trying to trip us out because they're using decimals, but guess what? It's not going to make us trip out. So minus 6.5 minus 6.5. Oops. And then make sure we're not using inequalities here. So you notice that this is an equal sign. So we're not going to be doing any flipping. So don't make that mistake. This cancels out. I'm left with a negative 2x equal to, and 1.5 and 6.5. Let's see. Let's do the math. We could use a calculator. So they're different signs, so we're going to subtract. That leaves us with 5, and it's going to be a negative 5 because that is larger. Then I'm going to divide by negative 2, divide by negative 2, and then that leaves me with x. And negative 5, a negative divided by a negative is going to give me a positive number. So that's just going to be 5 over 2. Or, I'm going to rewrite it here. Now we can put it into a mixed, or you could do 5 divided by 2 on the calculator and see what it gives us. That gives us 2.5. So this can say 2.5. So then if we were to graph this, it would fall right here. You don't need to graph it. Just know that you just need to write down the actual equation. Now we're going to work here. Now they give us an inequality. So we got 4x plus 5 is less than 7. Make sure you write all this down. So we got this here. All right, so I'm going to subtract 5. And this cancels out. I'm left with that. It's not a negative, thank goodness, so I'm not going to be doing any flipping. And 7 minus 5 is 2. Yeah. Divide by 4, divide by 4. I'm running out of room. So I'm going to write it over here. I'm going to be left with x 2/4, which is, we can simplify that to 1/2. Oh, whoops. It was not an equal sign. I forgot to bring over the inequality. So x is less than 1/2. And we know that 1/2 can be written as 0.5. So I'm going to find 0.5 here. And remember, what type of a dot are we going to use? Well, if you don't remember, we can go back to the top of our notes with the less than symbol. And it tells us, whoa, that was a long time ago in our notes. Less than is an open dot. So let's go back. Less than is an open dot. And here we are. I'm going to make an open dot on point 0.5, and it's going to go to the left like this. Okay, now we're doing number 16. So I only want you to write this down in your notes, what I did here in red, or I guess it isn't red, kind of like a pinkish, dark pink, light red. And if you're noticing as you write this down, I thought it was a typo, but it's not. Look at this. They want us to combine some like terms here. They're trying to trick us. They're not going to trick us though. We're going to do the math. So 4 plus 4 is 8. 2 plus, and then we keep the 2 the same because we have to keep the same denominator. And we're going to rewrite this. Bam. But we know that 8 divided by 2 is just 4. So we can just put 4 here. And we could totally solve this. Like, we've been solving these like all day. So we're going to plus 6 over here. And these cancel out. I'm left with this, so I bring it down here for x. Leave the inequality facing the same direction, because we're not dividing by any negatives here, so we're okay. And 4 plus 6 is 10. Right? Yeah, 10. Then now we're going to divide by 4. And it's okay to divide. We don't flip the inequality because we're not dividing by a negative here. It's a positive, so we leave the inequality alone. And this is left with x. And then we have 10 divided by 4, which is 2 1/2, or it could be 2.5. But check this out. I'm going to rewrite this over here so we can see it. We have, I'm just going to say 2.5 is greater than or equal to x, but the x isn't first. What? I need to flip this whole thing. That's not cool. Man, why didn't they give it to me correct to begin with? So I'm going to put the x first, and I'm going to write down the 2.5, and this is the guy I have to flip. So I have to have it facing this way. So I want you to see that. Now that it's in this form, we can graph it, because the x always has to be first. If you need to write that down, say x always has to be first when graphing. And remember, on the test, there's going to be 1 or 2 problems where you're graphing it, and you don't want to make that mistake. So I'm going to go up here, and I'm going to find 2.5. Where's 2.5? Right here. And it's going to be a closed dot because it's got that equal sign underneath it. So we need to make sure it's a closed dot. And now that it's facing this way, I know which way to graph it correctly. And you can face that way. You don't need to do the graphing part. All you need to do is the equation. But I just want you to know how to do that. And so now you'll stop the video. There's going to be a form that you're going to have to do where there's these 3 questions. And you're going to have to solve and explain how you got your solution. Thank you. That's the end of our notes. Good luck.